Hi everyone, welcome to this special edition of the Spinners Lounge. We're back for 2016 and we've got some new stuff that we're doing on the channel now. And what we're doing is we're featuring certain collectives, i.e. it could be a DJ, record label, or just groups of people who we work with and collaborate over possibly over the course of a year or a period of time. And I'm quite happy to start this year off with a feature from someone that I've worked with in the past. If you guys haven't watched the previous Spinners Lounge, there was a DJ and a record label owner called Boski, owner of Fracture Recordings. And last year when we did the Spinners Lounge, we featured him, and then we went back and we featured two other artists and a DJ. So this year, we're now moving forward where we're going to create a playlist on the channel which will be dedicated purely to the Fracture Recordings. So for this Spinners Lounge, we've got one of the first guests that's going to be from the Fracture group and that. And with all Spinners Lounge, before we start and proceed, always let our guests please introduce themselves and let them know who's there. So
my name is Chris Ashby. My artist name is Taage. People always ask me how to pronounce that, but that's how I pronounce it myself. And yeah, I'm an artist and career brand manager, actually, of Fracture Recordings.
Right, cool. Right, so normally with the Spinners Lounge, I usually just dive in with my set of questions, which are kind of the format. I call it more of a timeline because then I think it's easier to communicate that way so we know where you grew up and that. Sure. But before we get into that, because this is a special edition for Fracture Recordings, I really wanted to get to find out more about your relationship with Fracture Recordings and with Boski and what, like you said you're the brand manager. What does that mean? Obviously, sure. For the label. So, how did you get involved with Fracture Recordings and meeting Boski?
So basically, it was kind of like it's a bit of a modern story really, because it's the same with a lot of artists. So what happened nowadays with people, it's like I didn't actually meet Boski face to face for like 6 months to a year after I started talking to him. So I had been through kind of like a bunch of different aliases for production in the past, and I started this new one, and I posted a track on SoundCloud, essentially posted it around a bunch of social media kind of places. Boski, I think he likes and commented on the track or something similar. I just kind of messaged him on Twitter and said, like, thanks for liking the track, hope you like this, follow some other stuff here, I do this as well. Like, we started chatting a bit. I noticed he had just literally started Fracture Recordings, and my day job really is as a graphic designer and a web designer, cool. Digital designer, sort of creative director in whatever capacity for startups and other companies before. And so I just literally said to him, like, oh, you've got a label, but the artwork looks a bit rubbish. I'm being honest. I'm gonna be honest to him, like even straight off the bat, so he knows what he's getting. That's the same with anyone really. And kind of said, I do this as my job. Like, I'm happy to create a brand for the label. I'm happy to create some art, do the artwork for the label. I want to help you out. I like the stuff that you've got on the label. I like the stuff that you've produced. I feel like we're kind of aligned musically here as well. So there's some stuff that I'm doing that's potentially related to the label. And then, yeah, it kind of went from there, really, to the point of we created the brand, got a bunch of, he's got a bunch of other artists on board. He's grown the brand now. He's grown the label. I'm doing all the artwork and all the releases, and we're just, looking forward to 2016 and what that's going to bring for the label. Events, other stuff, who knows. It's good.
Oh, that's cool. So, from the moment you sort of connected, obviously you involved with the with the label, and you're doing the branding. At what point do you then come together to then think, okay, you want to start? Because you've put out some stuff on Fracture, haven't you?
Yeah. There's been a few tracks on Fracture. For the most part, kind of my direction as a producer isn't necessarily exactly what Boski or Tyler would release on Fracture anyway. But for the tracks that do kind of match up, and for free releases as well, especially because I do a lot of bootleg stuff and a lot of remix stuff of existing tracks, or using a vocal or a sample from something else, so we can't release it as something that we can make money from. So there's been a couple of free releases. One's coming out in the next sort of month or so on the free. I think we're doing like a sign up for a mailing list and get a bunch of free exclusive tracks for the label, which will be a good promotional thing. So yeah, people want to sign up to that. Obviously, when that email comes out, you'll get a free track of mine and a couple from some other people, and then one remix of another guy's track last year. But yeah, that's it for the most part for me in terms of releases. But the releases on the label is a secondary thing to the artwork and the brand management and the visual side of the brand, which is more what I work on with Boski.
No, that's cool. Like I said, I think I've seen bits and bobs what you've done for his label, and he's always talking about you, about the branding and logos. He's got good words. He's very kind. No, that's cool.
Nice to hear.
No, so right. What we usually do, the Spinners Lounge, like I said, is usually the whole aim of it is just to find out a little bit more about you. Obviously, you've told us about the connection with Boski, the record label, but let's start off and just tell us where you grew up and kind of your background and stuff.
Sure. So I grew up where I still live now, almost, which is kind of like in Surrey, in the suburb. Like went to a school that was on a council estate. I grew up around good people and bad people and whatever, but I've always had a good strong family and a really strong sort of family upbringing and great parents. I have a good relationship with my brother and my sister. We're very close. Good relationship with my parents. And kind of was always more inclined towards the creative sort of disciplines. And going through school, I initially sort of picked up music and art through there, really. So suburban upbringing, I guess, in Surrey, near enough to London anyway.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So you said you've had a little bit of music experience as that. The next question, really, what I always ask people is to try and make the connection between what you listened to as a youth, how it kind of developed your influences or minor of influence, I don't know. But kind of just give us a summary or tell us a bit more about growing up, like you said, where you did music, to you. What did it mean to you? How did it inspire you? And then obviously leading up to the DJ bit.
Sure, yeah. So fun story, but when I was in secondary school, I was at home like eating dinner with my family. We had like MTV on in the background, and there's like a Limp Bizkit or a Linkin Park video comes up on the screen or whatever, and everyone in my family is just like, oh, what is this? This is awful. I hate this music. I can't stand it. Well, and there's me, like shy little kid sitting in the corner. I'm like, I quite like it actually. And so I kind of got into rock music. I got into metal music when I was at school. I taught myself how to play guitar from the age of sort of 14, 15. Okay. And got into I was listening to a bunch of stuff. I was listening to like thrash, death metal. Like I was the weird kid sitting in the corner of the classroom, essentially, just like with my headphones in, like blasting out some really screamo stuff. But it was always part of the alternative crowd there as well. But from that kind of when going into sixth form and going into further education and stuff, met a few people and got into electronic music, got into trance music mainly, and so I had these kind of two opposing interests of like metal and guitar-based music, and then electronic music and trance music. Heard I think the first electronic song that I heard that I really was like, yes, I love this, is a track called Airwave by Rank One, which is a super old school. That's an old school trance track, and just has a really good melody, because obviously being someone who knows instruments, and I learned the guitar and I play a bit of piano now and I play bass and I know music theory. I taught myself music theory is to hear that stuff was a more musical side to electronic music, which I didn't know really that it existed. And so I met a guy then who was also really into the same stuff. We went for our 21st birthday, we essentially went to Amsterdam and went to a big trance like warehouse party. And back in the day, before all the big EDM festivals, that was like the biggest thing that you could go to. It's in a warehouse, you got 30,000 people, they're playing, there's like millions of lasers going on, and there's all this trance music until like 7, 8 a.m. in the morning, and we're doing like an all-nighter, and we've gone over there for our 21st with a few other people, which was great. And that's really what inspired me to DJ, and we kind of DJ together and went and bought shitty CDJs and a mixer and sort of sat in our bedroom and mixed songs together just, for fun, because that's what we listen to, that's what we like to do. And that's really how I got into like electronic music and DJing as a starting point.
Okay. So what year, because you've obviously answered the question I was going to ask you. Yeah. No, that's fine. But what year was this? What year was this? And then obviously you've gone from listening to these kind of diverse, different types of music, and then you're starting to lean towards electronic music. What made you think, okay, now I want to just go from someone who's going to these events, listening to this music, I want to actually take it up and start DJing? What was the actual connection? Was it just more of being there, or was there like particular influence, i.e. you saw a DJ, or maybe was it Rank One's tune, or what, you know what I'm saying? What triggered in your mind? Because everyone always, like for me when I was younger, it was the fact that I was going around and all the people I thought was cool were DJs, so I kind of leaned that way. So what was it that influenced you at that particular moment to say, well, I want to try and be a DJ just like these other guys?
It was more like, I think for me, a lot in that instance when that happens is when you see something and you essentially thinking to yourself like, it's a barrier to entry that people have to a lot of things, or a lot of things that people want to do, I feel. And when you get to a point with something where you think, oh, you know what, I think I could do that. Then you kind of try it. And so we were seeing these guys, and I was like, it was the start of YouTube. Like YouTube was just starting out. There was videos online, like tutorials and all that stuff. And so looking at those kind of things and like seeing what people were doing was essentially like getting one track, mixing it into another track, and then fading the other track out, or even whatever the basic version of DJing is, and being like, you know what, I could probably do that. I reckon I could do that. What that guy's doing up there on the stage, I could do that. And so that's really the inspiration that got it started for me, and that's the same as like the inspiration that got me into music in the first place, from a point of view of playing guitar, was like putting on a Linkin Park CD and on whatever hi-fi I had at the time, pressing play and saying to like my parents or whoever, was like, that sound, I don't know what it is, but I want to be able to make that. I want to be able to do that. I want to be that person doing that. And then it just happened that was a guitar, it just happened this was DJing, so those were the things.
Okay, cool. So let's fast forward a little bit, right? Obviously you start getting into DJing and stuff. We'll talk about what you started off, because you said you started off on CDs. We'll talk about it in a minute, but I want to know, obviously your skill, obviously, because everybody who DJs, even if you don't want to be professional, I think when you do it for a while, you do get better, because I think it's one of the things you have to physically get your hands and try it. So at what stage then did you start thinking, right, I can go from being someone who was just listening to the music, I'm learning about DJing, now I can actually go out and be that person that I saw playing? That could be me now. So at what point did that come into the DJing for you?
I think it was just a case of, we started playing around with it, and then there was two of us doing it, and so we were going, or at least for me especially, had friends who were people who were moving to their own place, and be like, oh, I have a house party here, I have a housewarming there, like people are playing in there, people are having music in their houses and having a party essentially, and you get drunk and stay up until like 7 a.m. or whatever you do when you're 18 years old and you first move out of your house, your parents' house, and so I would be like, I'd just say to someone, be like, oh, you know what about if I'll bring my decks over, I'll just play music for the whole evening. And so back then, I would literally like grab all my trance tracks, put them on CDs, take my shitty gear over, I can swear on this, right?
Spinners Lounge, open language. You know,
Okay, fine.
Don't offend anyone. That's it.
Fine. Yeah, and I would just like set up in their lounge, take my speakers, because my monitors for whatever I was listening to, or even starting production, which I wasn't really doing at that stage. I was just sort of playing songs that I liked in people's houses. And I'd be like, I'll start at like 6 or 7 p.m. when like no one's even there. It's just me and this guy and this guy who's moved into this house, like in his lounge, and, like playing tracks on, and then go until like 6 or 7 in the morning and just do like massive marathon sets. And just because I enjoyed it, I was having fun, and so I'd be doing like, we'd go to house parties and I'd do 10 hours, 12 hours, 8 hours, 3 hours, whatever, just because I was like, and it was part of it was because it was an excuse to like listen to the music that I wanted to listen to rather than whatever other people were putting on at the party. So that's kind of where it started, from DJing to other people, I guess.
Okay, cool. So with that on board, right, what has probably been a highlight for you being a DJ so far, or playing music? And, you know, like you said, you've done loads of things. So what has been a particular highlight for you that you can remember?
Highlight for me, probably, I honestly would say like still, and I don't play out to people much now because I'm a producer first and a DJ second. But honestly would say one of those house parties, even back when I just started, was just like tons of people there, tons of people in the living room, tons of people in other rooms. Like these people had a massive house. There was like 7 of them living there. They rented it out. It was a nasty run-down house, and they trashed the place. But it was great to take my stuff along and to have a party. And we just went. It was like a couple of people's birthday, and we just like literally cranked it up. Played all this trance stuff. It was going for like 10 hours. It was great. It was awesome. People were loving it. I was like teaching people how, like people were jumping in and out, and it was great. And so that's the kind of stuff that I like with it. I'm not so much a fan of like, it's great all these big events where they have like, you got the big guy in the stop on the top on the pedestal, everyone's like looking at the DJ. But what's more fun actually is having maybe something a bit more intimate. Everyone's dancing together, everyone's involved with the same thing, everyone's in the same element, everyone's in the same sort of mindset there. Which is why those kind of things where you're closer to the people that are dancing, you can get involved with that stuff. For me, I feel more connected to that.
Cool. Right. So the next sort of question is really, because you obviously like production, producing is more where you're at now. At what stage then did production then become a thought for you to say, right, okay, I've experienced DJing now, I want to start producing? Because obviously you like to think from the Linkin Park, the sounds.
Yeah.
So then you're into electronic music now. How did you bring all of these elements together to obviously bring forward Taage? Is that how you pronounce it?
I say Taage usually,
Taage.
But I don't even know how to pronounce it myself. This is the stupid thing. My DJ name, I don't know how to pronounce it. How are people ever going to say it? I meet people and do different stuff, and they're always like, they'll say it differently to me, or they'll say it like in a way that I've never heard before, or they'll be like, how do you say your name?
No, cool. So how did the production then unfold, really?
Yeah, so for me, production came from a point of view of the other side of my musical interests first, rather than electronic music. And I was doing a thing where I was in a band, I was in a rock band, and I was writing a bunch of stuff for that band. I was doing acoustic stuff on my own, acoustic guitar, and just singer-songwriter stuff by myself. And recording all that stuff myself, recording all that stuff with different people's gear in different places. And I learned production through live instruments and live production and, essentially guitar-based music, rock and pop music. And it was only, and however bad it sounds, this is ominous, I know. But I only got into electronic music production despite liking and listening to that music for ages and ages and ages, because I was like, in a YouTube black hole for like a couple of hours. You know, you just get lost down there. And a video came up, and I clicked on it, and it was Avicii, how he produces a track or whatever, and I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna click on it. and so I clicked on it. I watched it, and it was so basic and so easy. Maybe he made it look easy, maybe he didn't. Maybe his way of producing it was easy, maybe it was dumbed down for the video. Whatever happened, I had one of those moments again where I looked at it, and I was like, because I'd done production before, I was like, everything he's doing, I know how to do that. I could do that. And so I thought to myself, like, why don't I just try and do that? And so I did. That's where I picked up the production of electronic music, and then started getting into all this other stuff. Went through a bunch of different aliases, went through a bunch of different styles of music, and ended up here, I guess.
Okay, so then how did you come up with your production name? Let's try it again. No, I like it. It's unusual. Yeah. You know, it gives. You know, okay. It's something someone will remember, even if they can't say it wrong. But
yeah, sure.
What was the sort of the concept? What was you thinking at that time when you thought of your production name?
So this sounds stupid, but because I'm a designer in my day job, and I'm an artist, and graphic designer, whatever. I do logos as part of my day job. That's part of branding, brand marketing, whatever. It's the same thing that I did for Fracture. So I'd been through a bunch of aliases, and I didn't like any of them really. And so I came at this from a different angle, and I was like, what name do I like the look of? Or what group of letters do I like the look of? Just put a bunch of letters together, spells out Taage with an E on the end, or however you say it. Did a logo for it. I was like, that looks really good. I like the look of that. Put it up on my SoundCloud page. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And I was happy with it. I didn't know how to pronounce it, but I was happy with it.
It's cool. You go with what your heart feels, isn't it? Right. Since we're coming off the back of production, right? Since I've been doing the Spinners Lounge personally, what I've noticed is, again, there's been Boski, Woody Two Shoes, Danny. Yeah. I'm trying to think if anyone else has been getting into production. But what I generally tend to ask, because I want to know, is there sort of a difference in your style? So let's take style in two questions. So first, as a DJ, what is your style as a DJ?
Okay, so my style as a DJ really is... I would say basically it's kind of tech house and house as the groove and the low end part of it, and then inspiration from disco and soul music, and even some jazz stuff sometimes, really, with a lot of the piano lines, and also sampling and taking bits from other songs, which I like and I think will work. Trying to mix those two styles together, so saying get like a tech house groove going, and then bring in the other elements over the top and see how that kind of works. I'm guessing the next question is going to be productions.
Well, that's what I was naturally going to say. So with production, then is it far left, too far left of what you play, or is it sort of in the middle, or is it, I don't know, because everyone's different. Some people just completely play one way, and then in production they're looking for something else. So for you, is it a marriage, or is it kind of a separation where everything... the production is what it is. The DJing is just that. So
for me, it is more like a marriage, I think, because essentially the conclusion that I came to when I was going through all my different aliases and producing lots of different types of music was like, I was keeping on going through things where I was like, I'm producing this because that's the sound of right now. I'm producing that because that's what I think is popular. I'm producing that because that's what I think people click play on or click like on whatever. And it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to produce the stuff that I like. I'm going to just produce what I like. I'm going to just play what I like. And that's been so much better for me, really. And it's quite similar stuff, to be honest. So the productions that I do, I try to produce things that marry those two kind of genres of music together. Or I try to produce, and I do a lot of bootlegs and remixes, like I said before, and I'll do things where, and because I come from a musical theory kind of background, having learned instruments when I was in school, or whatever, I'm not like a virtuoso but I do know music theory enough to kind of do that stuff. And so for me, my production always comes from a songwriting point of view first and a musical point of view first, and trying to create something new and different, and using, you know, samples or using other tracks or acapellas or whatever to create that sound that, you know, maybe is slightly different to what people are used to listening to, as much as I can do anyway. But still giving people something that they can attach themselves to or that they recognise as well. And that's similarly the sort of stuff that I will play when I'm DJing, but just in a different way. So I'm not playing straight tracks when I'm DJing necessarily. I'm playing lots of different things from different tracks potentially at the same time, or with effects or whatever. So similar-ish kind of mentality with the both of them.
Okay, that's cool. Right. This is sort of the semi-last question. We talk about, you know, technology and stuff, right? And
it's my favourite question.
Most people like it, you know. But for me, I always focus on the equipment you started off with, and then, you know, to kind of paint a picture to where we are now.
Sure.
Yeah. So DJing, starting off with your friends, what do you guys basically have access to in terms of learning how to mix, develop your mixing skills, and then how did you end up to what you're going to be using today for your Spinners Lounge mix? So
sure. So kind of where it started initially was, like I said, we bought a crappy pair of CDJs. We bought like a crappy 2-channel mixer off whatever secondhand website, DJ website, and we just learned how to mix tracks together. And I was like, because I come from a musical point of view at the time when we bought the stuff, I kept on saying to him, I was like, we need something that has master tempo. It needs to stay in key when you speed it up and slow it down. It needs to not screw the pitch up when you do change the tempo. That was my main thing at the time, because I was like, I'm the most worried about, I want to put a vocal over this other track, and I want it to work together musically. Whereas he's like, I just want to like play around with some CDJs. And so we got that, and then we got after that we got some better decks, and I was like, I want the one with the screen on it, so I can see the waveform on it. And like not much stuff was doing that. Like one of the some sort of weird brand one that was the one that we bought, and like Pioneer were doing that at the time. And then we went on to USBs with those decks as well, because that had USB at the time. And then from there, kind of just played on CDJs wherever I was playing for the most part, because that's what I knew. And then sort of Tractor came along and played around with a bunch of different stuff. So I've played out on a Tractor scratch setup with vinyl decks, running into Tractor, running into Serato, which is a lot of fun. I actually prefer that more than CDJs almost. Okay. But not that I'm a big vinyl guy, but I just like it was just fun. And it gave me a better feel. Like it was better. It felt better when I was mixing. Also, you know, using controllers and all of that stuff. And so where we've kind of gone to now is thinking about, okay, how do we take a live setup, or how do we take a DJ setup out of the realm of just 2 CDJs and a mixer, 4 CDJs and a mixer, and going like, well, we have so much more, you've got so many more options today,
of course,
with software and technology and hardware to be like, I want to cater this exactly to what I want. You can get a controller out of the box and go into Tractor or go into whatever software and be like, actually, I don't want any of these buttons to do anything they're designed to do. I want them to do exactly what I want, and sort of create something new and interesting out of that. And so for me, that's the interesting part of where DJing is going now with equipment. And like what I've got today is essentially a very minimal setup, and I'm using an X1 and a Z1 with a 4-deck Tractor set up on a laptop. That's literally it. But even that minimal setup allows me to control so much more than the 2 CDJs and the mixer did.
Yeah, of course. Cool. So, because there's again doing this as well, the Spinners Lounge from last year, I've noticed that a lot of people are using controllers, and you know, there's a little bit of a debate that I sort of caught wind of CDJs and controllers. What is your personal opinion on the kind of? Does it really matter what you use? Is it, you know, as long as for me it doesn't really matter personally, but then as long as you deliver an experience, that's what counts. But you know, like some people are very I don't know, staunching their views.
Yeah, I
so
get
it's
it.
like if it's not CDJs or if it's not vinyl, then you're not really a DJ. So what is your opinion really, just to kind of round off? Is technology like this allowing more people to sort of embrace the DJ culture, or is it making it too easy for people to think that it's just easy? I can just get a controller, I can just play whatever music I want, or what? How do you feel about that? Do you think that it's liberating to have this technology, and then allowing more people to embrace it, play music, do what they love?
Yeah.
Or is it kind of, sticks in that old school mentality, well, if you're not using CDJs or vinyl, then you're not really a proper DJ? So
I think, honestly, I think the same as you. It is liberating, this stuff. And I think, the people, you can say whatever you want about sync buttons or whatever, but even big name guys have been using sync buttons since that technology was available, and whatever, in my opinion, what changes really is, like, over time, the names or the words of things don't necessarily change. So what the tag DJ doesn't really change, but the definition of what it means to be a DJ does change. And so for me, it's not an issue at all. And whatever point in time, whatever you have access to, whatever you have available to you, the people who are going to be at the pioneer and the front end of this stuff are going to be the people who are thinking, okay, this is what I have available to me. How do I utilize that to create something new, to create something interesting, to do something that nobody's done before, to do something that's more creative or gets people going better, or is different, or whatever. And so these are all just tools available for us to do that. Even you think to back in the day and people just DJing on vinyl because that was the only thing that you had access to, and look at Carl Cox in space and being like, you know what, I'm going to use 4 vinyl decks, mix them all together. Nobody's doing that at that time, apart from him and like maybe a handful of other people. They're still thinking that stuff nowadays, but with hardware and technology. So for me, it's taking out some of the technical proficiency of what used to be defined as a DJ, but it allows you to do so many more creative and interesting things with that, with loops, with effects, with how you set up, your individual DJ setup, with using, your laptop or your mixer or hardware as more of an instrument rather than playing 2 tracks and mixing them into each other. And that's really the interesting thing for me, is to think about, like, this is what we have now. How do we do something really interesting with that? How do we make something out of that that people can connect to? And then, like you said, it's the end products that if people deliver, if they create an experience for people, then what does it matter, really?
It doesn't really, but again, you know what, Chris? It's been excellent talking to you.
Thank you.
I'm glad we've kicked off, with the Fracture, because I think the whole point of this feature is not just to feature the DJs. And like I said, you're the brand manager. You've helped out Boski with the label a lot, doing the kind of artworks and graphics.
Sure.
So that's really cool. So what we usually do at the end of the Spinners Lounge really is kind of let the guests sort of share where they can find you. So before you start, for you for watching, for any sort of the links for all Fracture recordings will be in the description of the video below. You'll be able to go in there. Beatport, SoundCloud, there's YouTube, there's Twitter, there's Facebook. But if I've forgotten something, every link will be in the video below. So again, because I'm trying to make sure you realize this is like a special feature, really, and what me and Boski are trying to do is just to kind of collaborate. So the Spinners Lounge goes beyond this kind of DJ thing, but we're getting inside into sort of a young record label starting out. He's got lots of artists, and like I said, he's got people like Chris working for him and doing stuff. So it's interesting. So we're going to be featuring a lot more people. And so go and check out the music again, because that's what this whole section is about, to kind of help, not just help, but for Fracture Recordings to just be out there and everyone to discover and learn a little bit more about, the people involved, the boss, and that kind of thing. So that's that bit over. Chris, you kind of tell them where they can find your mixes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me mainly on soundcloud.com/Taage Music, and that's TAAGE music. There is a bunch of free downloads and free stuff on there because I love free stuff and I love bootlegs and all that remix stuff, and there's going to be so much more stuff going up there. I literally just post tons of tracks on there. Go to the Fracture one as well. I mean, you can get all the free stuff. It's great.
No worries. All the links are going to be in the video.
Yeah.
And like I said, you'll be able to check out the catalogue from Fracture, what's coming. And at the end of the video, we're going to have an annotation, which you probably might see in a minute or not. I've probably got myself in trouble now by saying this. But yeah, you'll be able to get all the links and go and discover what's new, what's been before, who's on the roster. And like I said, if you subscribe to our channel, you'll be able to watch this particular feature, which is dedicated to Fracture Recordings and all the guys like Chris as well. So guys, once again, thank you for watching the Spinners Lounge. This is the Fracture Recordings edition, and peace.